Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Judith Briles, and we are back for another awesome podcast. And with someone who is one of my favorite people of all time. Dom used to be a neighbor of mine. I remember thinking, oh, I can shortcut and get over to your house. So I
Right.
went in the back entrance, and then I'm climbing over a fence to get in. Remember that, Dom?
Yeah, I believe we called security on you or something, didn't we?
Yeah, I have no idea. All right, so let me get this thing started off right. So everyone, welcome back to the show. I always like to start with a quote from my book, Snappy, Sassy, Salty Success. Over 400 of my quotes for authors. You're talking about some writing things, and who knows where else it's going to go. But so I just kind of do a random open. And out of this, it came up bypass jargon and big words when everyday English suffices. So that might work with what our guest today does every day in the morning as he goes forth. So let me tell you about who Dom Testa is. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Nick Zellinger, who Dom knows very well. NZ Graphics has been with us from inception. Fabulous book designer, cover designer, award-winning, and Rebecca Finkel, also an amazing book designer and cover designer at FPGD for Rebecca.com, and for Nick, it's nzgraphics.com. And I just would highly recommend if you want a book that you never have to apologize for and how it looks, how it feels, these are the two people will make it happen, either Nick or Rebecca. They're both awesome
I've
with
worked
that.
with
Now,
both of them, and
you
I just
have.
worked with Rebecca this week, in fact, on a project.
Ah,
How about
very
that?
cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right, so let me introduce you to the awesome Dom Testa. He's a morning radio show host on Denver's Kool 105. He's also a writer with nearly 30 books published in multiple genres under multiple pen names. So his little schizophrenia gets to come out. Dom was a 2019 inductee into the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame, and you can find most of his work. Just go to his website at domtestabooks.com. He's also the happy author of a brand new book called Let It Be Good. Let it be good. The topic within the pages deals with simple insights for a satisfied life, but also we're going to be dealing all throughout the day with the art, the pros, the cons, the traps, you name it, that comes with this word called perfectionism. So, with that, Dom, we are off and running for the day. And to me, and I shared a story with Dom that I had gone through when I was working on my doctorate a gazillion years ago, and that one of my profs was after me for um, increasing what my work production and my productivity. And
Uh,
let me tell you, I was lagging. I had gone through multiple crises, personal, health, financial, professional. I mean, I was really in the pits. And so I wasn't doing a work, and he was really pissed at me. And he was really telling me I was not going to pass. I would not complete the doctoral work. He says, you are really smart, and your habits are horrible. And we had just gone through this whole thing about perfectionism, product to market, and what can bring it down, which is often the perfectionism. And so I just went through and I kind of repeated his works back to me. And I said, E.T., that's what we called our professor, E.T. And I said, what I'm doing right now is good enough. It's just squeak me through. I've had 4.0 all through all my classes. If I can just get a 2.0 in your class, I will make it. I got to be, but with that, that perfectionism can bring you down. So we're going to get into some of that because Dom has some amazing insights dealing with the trap of perfectionism. So why don't we just start there, Dom?
I'm sorry, I lost your audio there for a second.
Ooh, okay. So let's start with the trap of perfectionism. What's the good, the bad, the indifference? Um,
Yeah, you know what's interesting about it is that I think some people will hear the message and what they default to is that you should just be a slacker or you
Ooh,
shouldn't give it your all. For some people, there's no shades in between. It's like when people leave online reviews, they'll either leave a 1 or a 5, right? Either something's the greatest of all time or it's the worst of all time. And it's the same thing when I started talking to people about let it be good. And they're like, oh, so just you don't even try that hard anymore. And I just have to
oh,
shake my head because I mean, I know you're this. I know you're just like me in that I give it my all. And I don't take anything for granted. But sometimes we do reach a point where it's starting to affect us in our relationships, like you were talking about. It affects us mentally, emotionally. And there's a
mhm.
lot of health issues that are tied in with this overdrive that we have. And because I am like an overachiever and a type A, I felt like I was probably the person who should write this book because sometimes good is good enough. And when we are
It is.
striving for perfection, all we're doing is setting ourselves up for disappointment. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to write this book.
And I also think that those who keep striving for perfection, I haven't said this line in a long time, but it's like one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, three to get ready, three to get ready, and you never frickin' go.
Right.
Right?
That's the truth. Well, the funny thing about that is I got into this really bad habit of
Ooh.
planning. And what I mean by that is I was always planning. I mean, I love my spiral notebooks. It's like when school supplies go on sale, I get all excited because they're selling, those 5 subject spiral notebooks, college ruled. And I love them because I get them and I make all sorts of plans. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I do this. And what you forget after a while is that eventually you have to implement your plan. And I was always a big time planner, filling notebook after notebook after notebook. And it wasn't until I realized that I was like, all right, stop with the excessive planning. Once you have a good plan, just make that, bring that to life, bring that to fruition. And so I always laugh when I hear you say 3 to get ready, 3 to get ready, 3 to get ready. A lot of us fall into that I'm getting ready to get ready mode when eventually you got to get off your butt.
I know. And no, and then, oh, but I could have added this on. That's what I hear from mom. But I said, yeah, that's the next. That will be your next book because
Yeah.
I've no one told me, and I bet you no one told you when you wrote your first book. What was the name? What was the title of your first book?
First one was called Comet's Curse.
Comet's Curse, and I have it. I have Comet's Curse, right? And actually, I have all those original when you first original books, and no one told me when I wrote the only book I was ever going to write that books bred more books. So here
Yeah.
you are at the big 3-0. I just passed the big 4-8 on my
Wow.
books. And that those little suckers just keep
They're like rabbits. What are you what are you going to do for your 50th? You have big plans?
I don't. Oh, I have a new series I want to start. I have a
Is this
series I
another
want.
is this another fiction series? Because I know
Yeah,
you're really fired up about your fiction these days. I think
yeah,
that's fantastic.
yeah. I've got the historical fiction, which I've never talked to about on the show. I should maybe just do with the creation how that happened
Did
because it was
I
really
did I like let something out of the bag that I shouldn't have or
no. I just I'm always about authors and writers growing and doing their things, and sometimes you forget that this is what we're doing for us too. But how that thing even started. I mean, I was reluctant. I came in to rescue an author's book whose co-partner abandoned him.
oh,
And that's when I said, "Oh, for God's sakes, get over here. Let's just get going. I'll come in and help you out." And all of a sudden, Dom, his characters are waking me up at night. They're
right.
saying, "Why did you write it this way? You know I don't like this." I'm going, "Oh, oh." you know, and
Yeah.
and And now we're in the heart of book 4 in the series.
And
So
it's funny too, because when you talk to creative people, almost 100% of them, and this is a great lesson for people who are just starting to get their feet wet in this, no matter whether you're a writer or you're a musician or an artist or whatever, is to really, really pay attention to the things that can inspire your next project. Because it's not like you're probably like me. I have never sat down at a table and said, all right, what is my next book going to be about? That's never happened. I'll be out on a walk. I'll be somewhere else. I'll be talking to somebody on,
and then
on the
and it
morning
drops in.
radio show. I've gotten phone calls from listeners who have said something. And I'll tell you, this tool right here, even though we all,
Oh yeah, it's the best.
beat this up, it's got a notes section in it. And if you could see my notes section, Judith, it's filled with things when something happens, I will grab that. And my friends have learned, and my wife has learned, when I go, wait, hold on a second, they're like, Dom needs to make a note. He's gonna write an article about this problem. And that's exactly right. And you just don't know where it's gonna come from. Can I share one quick story with you too? The like the book that you held up, Let It Be Good. The whole idea, I never sat down to write a book like that. It was my wife and I were on vacation. We were up in Vermont and we went to a bar. It was an outside bar at this restaurant. And it was just magnificent, Judith. It overlooked this river, big shade tree over it. This is September, so the trees are just getting ready to start turning, up there in the Northeast. And Vermont maybe isn't necessarily known for being the most welcoming to people. I mean, they're kind of standoffish in a way.
Careful. They're careful.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And we had the time of our lives. I mean, the food was great. The drinks were spectacular. The setting was good. And all the people around us, they were all the locals, could not have been nicer. And we were walking back to the car when we left to go back to our bed and breakfast. And we were like, this was so much fun. We should come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's our last night here. Let's come back and do it again. Well, we did. And it was horrible. The food sucked. The service was terrible. The people around us were all really not friendly. We probably stayed 45 minutes. And this time, walking back to the car, I just turned to my wife, Gretchen, and I said, why didn't we just let it be good? Those, I didn't plan it. Those words just came out of it. Why didn't we just let it be good after that first night?
Exactly.
Why do we have to improve on everything or duplicate everything? And as soon as I sat down in the car, I pulled my phone out, my notes, and I put, let it be good. And from there, it just took off. So for creative types, just be open and be ready to document all these ideas that just pop into your head, because you don't know where they're going to come from.
Or where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And the dominoing. So the 50th book, the 49th book will be The Secret Awakening. That will be the 4th in the series. I am hoping it's the last one. And the 50th book will open up the Magnolia series. So there you go.
Can I talk you out of that?
Okay, why not?
Because I think that should be your 51st book. And I think your 50th book should be something about your, I don't like the word journey, it's overused, but your all of your experiences with traditional publishing to independent publishing to then teaching other people. And I mean, and you could call it the Big 5-0 or something like that, that really puts the spotlight on a career of creating and helping other people create. That's what I think you should make like the author's walk.
Yeah, which you are in. And I share that wonderful story about Kevin Anderson and his trophy for over 700 rejects. Yeah.
Wow.
Who's become a good friend, by the way.
And he's so prolific that it's
he's
insane.
amazing. He is brought to me, I have to tell you, I have now a fabulous map illustrator from the Ukraine through
Wow.
our joint friend, Kevin Anderson. And Oleg is fabulous. And he'll say, I'm sorry, Dr. Judith, I'm late a few days, but we were bombed the other day.
Oh my God. Jeez.
Anyway, so I'm going to recommend this to all of you. This is the book I wish I had when I started writing 40 years ago. Finding and using your voice, not others' voice. And also, now I'm going to add on, let it be. The let it does it just good is good enough
Yeah.
a lot of
Put your
times.
best into it and then
Yeah.
wipe your hands and walk away. And that's also what keeps writers many times, especially younger writers. It keeps them from ever actually publishing because they want
Mhm.
to refine and polish again and then rewrite and then rewrite. And it's like, yeah, there's a certain amount of editing and rewriting and polishing you need to do. But after a while, you get to the point where you're just afraid to release it to the universe. And at some point, it is good enough. And all of that work you're doing on that first book over and spending years on it, it's keeping you from writing your second book. So let it be good enough after you've put a lot of work into it and made it the best it can be, and
Mhm.
then quit worrying and send it out there. Let the world
Yeah,
have it.
you've done your best with the tools and the skills you have, and we will both guarantee to you, you will acquire new tools and new skills as you proceed in this journey. I guarantee that.
Yeah,
I mean,
truth.
you
Truth.
know, what I know about writing, what I know about publishing today, oh my God, I wish I had a a clue in 1979 when I sold my first book. So there we go. All right, so we are off track a little bit. Let's come back to some of these things. Dom, you talk about the perfectionist dilemma. So what is that? Let's get into that.
Well, the dilemma, I think, is the dilemma is that we feel like if we want to make something even better than it is, we keep, like I was talking about, beginning writers continuing to polish and polish and polish. You get to the point where you start to kind of leech away your enjoyment of it, and that kind of breaks my heart too, because this drive that we have to make something perfect will then eventually just erode the satisfaction that you had going into the project in the first place. Um, that's why
And the joy and the
all the
joy
joy.
you feel. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I'm going to always be as competitive as I am. I'm just an ultra competitive person. But I don't think that I don't think it's, a lot of people think that you can't be competitive and just let it be good. And I just think that's wrong. You don't want to get to that tipping point where your drive is just not only sucking away your joy, but the joy of the people around you, because then you're just no fun to be around after a while. So to me, that's
Wow.
the biggest dilemma with our never-ending search for perfectionism.
So there is a difference between perfectionism and ambition.
Right.
We
Yeah.
have a difference there. Okay. So can we switch over to your show just a little bit? How is perfectionism? I mean, you've been top rated here in Denver for how long?
Oh gosh, this September will be 48 years in the industry.
Wowza.
It'll be 39 years in Denver radio, and then 32 doing morning radio, 33 doing morning radio in Denver. Um, I got to tell you that's a tough industry. It's funny. I have to laugh at people who think it's just like the easiest job in the world. I've had people say, "All you do, you just turn on a microphone and talk." Well, yes, but it's what you're talking about that makes a difference. And it's so competitive. I think that's what burns most people out and keeps most people from being able to do a morning radio show in a large market for 30 something years, is because there's in Denver, there's 43 radio stations. So you have 42 other stations that are going after you. The drive for ratings is intense. You give a lot of pressure for that. And then there's internal pressure because somebody always wants your job. So there's always somebody, because there's not that many morning radio positions in
That's
America.
right. Morning slot is prime time.
That's prime time. I mean,
Prime
if
time.
I don't do mornings, I'm not doing radio. I mean, that's all I want to do. So there's just a lot of pressure to it, and it's good though. I love what I do. I think one of the reasons I'm able to, ride those waves of pressure is just because ultimately the job is just so much fun. It's a gas, and I work with good people. I've always worked with good people, which is key. Surround yourself with good professional people. So it's going great. I just made a move after 30 something years on one station in Denver, which is forever. I just made a move last fall to a sister station across the hall, to Kool 105. And that's been a great move. I've enjoyed it. Listeners are terrific. It's fun.
And why the move?
I think it was just time for, 30 plus years on one show. After a while, I just wanted a new challenge, I think. Which is funny
So
to be my age. Now I need my new challenge, but I
okay.
think I did.
So was the new challenge you have a different listenership on from mixed to Kool?
There are different listeners. There's no doubt. A lot of listeners came over when I made the move. They went
I'm
from mix
right.
to Kool 105, which is
Right.
really nice. But then there's there's new people who, used to listen to Kool, and now suddenly there's a new show. And then there's people who have never listened to either one of them, and they just stumble across us. And so yeah, it's always, it's something I haven't had to do in a long time because I've been in the same place for so long. But I liked that. That really energized me last fall. And I think we all need that from time to time. It's almost like with a writer when you get a new book project, it re-energizes you. So
There is a you think differently. You do that. Like,
mhm.
I did a little cookbook this year. That people hounded me for years. Why don't you just do some of those things? And out of that, here, okay, now we're doing show and tell today. But out this came out. And
Is that mac and cheese on the cover?
this is comfort food.
What do
All
you
right.
got in that mac and cheese? Do you put anything special in there like bacon or?
No, I'll tell you the secret sauce is Velveeta cheese. It gets the cream. I just tell you, Velveeta cheese is the secret sauce, people. But like, when I'm in a bookstore, and this is summertime, so I was in a bookstore. I was in our favorite bookstore, Barnes and Noble. And I sold Dom 85 books this weekend.
Wow.
I know. So I always ask people that I said, it's summertime. Do you like beets? And they said, we love beets. So I said, open up the book and let's look at page 42. I'm going to give you the most awesome beet salad with 5 ingredients. And I just go through, I say, this is how you get a smear of vanilla yogurt. If it's got honey in it, that's what I want. Otherwise, add a little honey to it. And then you're going to take pickled beets and you're going to drain them and you're going to spread them all across. Then you're going to take 1 or 2 oranges and you're going to slice them this way. You take out all the white gunk. And then you're going to take avocado and you're going to chop it up and put it on top. And if you love French's fried onions, you get to crunch those on top. When I did this, the first night I was playing with, my next door neighbors are my guinea pigs. And I said, Dan, I've got this new little salad I'm playing around with. You want to come over for dinner? And so he comes over, he takes one bite, and he literally, Dom, pulls the whole platter to him. And he said, this is what I'm having for dinner.
He can't resist the schmear.
It was the schmear. Anyway, so yeah, I mean that was kind of off the wall. Now I'm going to do an appetizer with, but it's like just a little potpourri of things that people just want, and their comfort. Like God, I have a corn chowder that is to die for. So anyway, let's move on. We're back to perfectionism. And I am not a perfect cook. I'll tell you all of that. I am a handful. The hardest thing for me was to write down what I'm doing. Um,
Right.
that was so hard.
But that's where, there's another analogy, I guess, because when you're cooking, that's when you make some of your best discoveries. If you don't
Mhm.
have the ingredients you need, and so you have to, improvise with something else. And the next thing you know, you've got a winner. You're like, oh, I never would have thought of that. And then hopefully you'll remember it if you don't write it down. I used to make a dish called,
Yeah.
I used to make something when I was a bachelor for so many years. I made something I called SIAP, SIAP. And what that stood for was blank in a pan. You can fill in the S yourself. It was blank in a pan. I called it SIAP. And it was just when I would go through my pantry
What
and my
what
refrigerator
you
and I'd
had?
find all these different things
Yeah.
and throw them all together. And yeah,
Yeah, I still have one of your recipes I do every once in a while. It's a pasta dish. You said this is one of your favorite.
pasta fiamalbo.
Yes.
Solid, solid choice. You know where I got that recipe was judging an Italian cook contest at Maggiano's. They used to do an annual contest where people could submit dishes and I think the winner won a trip to Italy or something.
Whoa.
And so they asked me to be the MC for it, but also to be one of the judges. And a woman entered this one particular pasta dish called pasta fiamalbo, and it just
Mm.
blew me away. It did not win because the other judges weren't as crazy about it. But I was
Mm.
like, oh man, that's my keeper from now on. That's my don't we all have something that we make when we want to impress people who come over?
Yeah, you wrote it up for me and gave it to me. I have it. It says
Yeah.
Dom's favorite pasta.
Yeah. So that's my
Yeah.
impress people dish.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank
what's
you.
yours? What's your impress people dish?
Oh, it depends. If it's going to be meat, I do a killer rack of lamb. I do
There,
a
well, yeah,
killer
that would
rack of,
impress people. Yes.
yeah, it's just really, it's a special. It's just literally you just want to pick the chops up and eat them. It's that almost like that kind of thing. And then all the sides that go too. I do an awesome Caesar salad. Yeah, from scratch. And so when there's a big group, we have our we have a neighbor. We're really off track here on this show
I
today.
know, but this is what happens when you and I talk.
We have my hood where I live. On the first Friday of the month, we all get together. We potluck. There's 50 of us, so we potluck.
Wow.
And I usually do it a couple times a year because I have the biggest back deck, so when the weather is divine, um, that's work. But I can easily, between the back deck and the inside, I can easily put 50 people. So if you want to sit. And I just started noticing, God, no one shows up with veggies at all. It's always either the shrimp, So I just decided to do that. And one day I walked in. I have a couple of humongous salad bowls, and we're talking about 10 heads of romaine people. 10 heads of romaine will go in here, and I make the whole dressing from scratch. Everything is from scratch. And doing it, and I just mixed it all up, and I make my own croutons. I do everything from scratch. And then I just walked around and served it, and I had people following me for another thing. And now I've had people say, you are going to bring salad. So sometimes I change it up, but yeah, yeah. So that, all right. So let's move on. Hey, you had a little line about press releases you sent to me. Life is not a press release. So can you talk about, do you use any social media push outs? How do you shout out about your books, Dom? Now, you started as a self-publisher, you went to New York, you've got an independent press running again, you have all these different genres. How do you shout it out?
Terribly.
Mm.
I'm the worst uh, marketer in history, I think, when it comes to books. It's one thing that I know I suck at, and I yeah, I will never write a book on how to market your book because I
Oh, I can do
stink at
that one.
that. Yeah, I know you could. Maybe that should be
I
your
can do that one.
50th book. Sure. Yeah, I stink at it, but the whole thing about press releases for me and what I was writing about in the book was that social media has turned into our personal press releases.
Oh,
That if you spend any time, Facebook's obviously the big one, but a bunch of others too, TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. It's where people want to show their best side at all times. Like, oh, look at this, incredible vacation we took. And oh, look at this great, meal that I made. And oh, this is my family. Don't I have the most beautiful family? Blah, blah. And it's interesting that, Hollywood pays, millions of dollars for, their PR coverage and stuff like that. But for the average person, social media is their PR. It's where they put on their best face, because you
Mm.
rarely see somebody post like, "Oh, here I am with no makeup on today," or "Here I am, feeling terrible, and I was sick last night, and here's I got into a car accident, and here's this is my banged up forehead." Like, people don't generally show real life on social media. Usually, it's the "Here's my glamorous, wonderful life. Don't you wish you were me?" And everybody's doing that. And what's funny
I know.
about it is that everybody knows that everybody knows that everybody is doing that, but we all just agreed that that's how we're going to do it. And so it's funny to me. I have an entire chapter in the book about social media and how it can sap your satisfaction, because the whole idea of the book is
Absolutely.
living a satisfied life. And people fall down this rabbit hole of social media and start comparing themselves to their friends, or even worse, comparing themselves to people they have no business comparing themselves to. And I would never be so naive as to think that I would talk people out of being involved on social media. I'm not that stupid. I know they're going to. I think this is just more me wanting to bring an awareness that, look, if you're trying to live a satisfied life, pull back just a little bit and quit doing this comparison game all the time, because it just makes you unhappy. There's all sorts of studies. There was just another one, is either today or yesterday. I was looking around because I might have it sitting here. It was just in the last 2 days, this report about social media and its impact on young adolescent brains, and how it causes so much depression. It causes suicidal tendencies and stuff like that, because their young adolescent brains haven't formed well enough yet to be able to handle all of this. And so there's all
Hmm.
sorts of movements to try to raise the minimum age for young people to even be able to sign on to social media. So,
Did you ever see the movies A Social Dilemma?
yes, I
The Netflix
did.
one?
Yes. And so much of
I
that
sent
is
that link
true.
out to so many people who actually got off of social media
Yeah.
because because you're going back to the perfect. Let's go back to perfection. You see the perfect child, the perfect outfit, the perfect this, the perfect this. And look, life ain't perfect, people. There is a lot of potholes and barricades and hiccups that we go through, and it's the realism, I think, disappears. So I have never really I've used social media for business related stuff, announcements,
Mm-hmm.
books,
Yeah.
promo. That when I'm in a Barnes and Noble store, we actually, I say, hey, I'm in at the Southlands Barnes and Noble, meet me. If there's a book in you, come on out and talk about it, and I'll give you some tips.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I have the two books that I always recommend is The Author's Walk and then How to Avoid Book Publishing Blunders. This is going to keep you on track.
Mm-hmm.
This will help your mojo get kicked off when you kind of go downhill, because you will. And this one will save you thousands of dollars of screw ups. I
Yeah.
recommend you get them both.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Um, but I actually love the marketing side, but we so support the Barnes and Noble stores. And I have to thank you, Dom, for doing that first introduction you did a gazillion years ago. You need to call Nancy do you remember that? Yeah.
She's the best.
She's off. She's not there anymore. She's long
She's
gone.
still the best.
She was the best. But they have a lot of wonderful snores. I mean, each store is kind of unique,
Yeah.
and you get to know them. And I view myself as a kind of an unpaid advocate. The first thing I always know is where the bathrooms are, because I'm always going to get
Right.
people think I work for the
Yeah.
store. So I can
Yeah.
guide them. I find very quickly, here's the fantasy section. There, the Bibles are back here. I
Yeah.
send them off.
Well, I'm
But
glad that has worked out so well for you. Yeah, they're
but
they're
thank you.
terrific people. And That's another note for, beginning writers who are paying attention to this stuff is develop those relationships with the bookstores in your area because a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them love to connect and meet, the local talent that's around. And every once in a while, you can get surprised by like an end cap or a display at the front of the store. Not always. I'm not trying to set up any, um, dreams of, multi-million selling and stuff like that. But it's really good to develop those relationships. If you're a book producer, get to know the people who are booksellers because you guys ultimately, need to be working together. So,
They're partners. I view
yeah,
them as partners.
yeah,
Yeah. So they're great. All right. So, Dom, you talked about a wallpaper syndrome. What's that?
yeah.
What's that?
Well, I was taking a little trip over to England. I took a trip by myself to England. It was just
Yeah.
a backpack, and I was walking walking into the town of Canterbury, and I stopped on this overpass that was going over one of their little highways. And I stopped on top of the overpass, and I was looking, and there's these giant walls, uh,
Hmm.
very tall, made of rock, and they're from Roman days. The Romans built these walls 2,000 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, not, it was more like 1,800 years ago, but the thing is, they built these walls around Canterbury,
And
and
they're still there.
they're still there, and they're magnificent looking. But what struck me, Judith, as I stood there, as I was watching all of these cars zipping by, at 65, 70 miles an hour
Oh,
past it,
not even seeing them.
and they're not seeing them. And I thought,
Hmm.
how funny. I wondered for people who live here, they see these walls every day their entire lives. And then when I got to a pub, because you know the way I am, if I'm in England, I'm going to a pub.
I do know that about
I
you.
was talking to one of the locals that I met. I struck up a conversation and I brought this up. And he was so funny because he said to me, well, you said you're from Colorado, right? And I go, yeah. He goes, I'll bet you don't even really see the Rocky Mountains anymore. And I thought, oh, he's exactly right. Like when you grow up with something in your backyard, basically, and you see it every day, you
Yeah.
might still kind of see it, but you don't really see it. You don't appreciate it anymore. And so I wrote an entire chapter in this book about wallpaper and this whole wallpaper syndrome that it can be things, but it can also be, unfortunately, people. That some of the people who are most important to us in our lives, because we are around them all the time, we just go into autopilot many times. And this chapter for me was mostly just about like reflection, self reflection, and thinking about the things and the people in my life and in our world that I maybe have started to take for granted. And I just thought that was a good, I don't know, a good reminder or a good message to share with people.
Oh, I love that. There is a phrase, God, I'm seeing it. It's very Japanese. Ignicio Ignishi. And I know I'm saying it wrong. I don't speak
That's
Japanese.
okay.
Okay. But it means in the moment. Just take the phrases, and one of my clients who's Japanese, he says, I do this every day. And I didn't realize that was what it was called, but it's just being present. You were just being present in front of
Mhm.
this magnificent wall. And
Yeah.
he was just saying, if you do this for 15 minutes a day, whatever your time is, and for me, Dom, I'm a outdoor deck person. I'm a deck gal. I will just go out and I am surrounded by my trees are so beautiful. They're so beautiful. I have purple robe locusts. When they're in bloom, they drop these clusters of fuchsia, and I am surrounded, enveloped, and it is so fantastic. And then there is the dance of the bumblebees, and the bumblebees. It really literally brings me joy.
Hmm.
Just that 15 minutes. of calming. The mug of, mug of tea. I always have a mug of tea, everyone, close by.
Same. I'm a tea freak too. Somebody
Yeah.
wrote me an email after they read the book, and they said that this is why they practice meditation. They said their meditation for them, which is pretty much what you're talking about too.
Yeah.
They say that's their whole reason for their meditation is not just to calm their mind, which we could all use a little bit of that, but they say they
Mhm.
use it as their time for just showing appreciation. I used to, when I had I work out of my house now, so I don't drive to the radio station anymore. But when I did, it was about 20 minutes in the morning to get from my house to the studios. And, I'm on the road
Mhm.
at 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. So I
Really?
had the road to myself. But I used to say that was my time for my gratefuls. So that was
Mhm.
my routine each morning in the car. I had those 20 minutes and like you're talking about, I was just being present
Mhm.
and being dialed in with everything. And I
Mhm.
think, a lot of us, we get away from that and we lose that. And it's just important to,
Mhm.
dial yourself back in and be aware of the people and the things around you that you have taken for granted. When I moved from Denver to the East Coast, my son at the same time, who had lived 15 minutes
Yep.
away from me, he
Yep.
moved to Hawaii. So we
He
went
did.
from being 15 minutes apart to being 6 time
Thousands of
zones
miles.
apart.
Yeah.
And that makes me more aware, right? Because he's not just right there anymore. He's
Mm.
a quarter of the world away from me.
Away.
And so I really, really have learned to appreciate the times that I see him. Like we try to meet in the middle, try to meet in Denver as often as we can. Um, but yeah, it's just like you take that time to get refocused on what's important to you because wallpaper, I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, you tend to just you become numb to things and you don't want to do that.
Well, I've never called it the wallpaper syndrome, but I totally get it. One of the things that I do, one of my other little luxuries with my mug of tea, I will slip into a hot tub in the morning
Yeah. Good for
to
you.
watch to watch the sunrise. It is so fabulous, everybody. It's a wonderful grounding. It's just kind of ooze in, and you see the glory of colors that are going
Mm-hmm.
to unfold over seconds sometimes.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's important for people to find whether it's getting in a hot tub or, I go for a walk really every day. I'm doing 3 to 5 miles every day. And half the
Mhm.
time I will listen to a podcast because that's where I catch up on things. But the other half the time I have no stimulus going and it's just a way for me to clear out my head and think. That's where I come up with all sorts of writing ideas. Um, and also just to become, a little bit more appreciative of things too. So hot tub, tea, walk, whatever your jam is, just to, get reconnected with the world and the
Yeah,
people in the world.
and we're not telling all of you to do hours. We're just find the moment.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, as my client friend is 15 minutes just to be present with you without a bunch of noise out there.
Yeah, it could be like everyone's homework assignment. Think about what you see daily that you just
Mhm.
take for granted anymore. After that incident in Canterbury with the Roman wall, I actually was in Rome and a year or two later, and I came up out of the subway there, and just right there, boom, is the Colosseum. And it was exactly the same thing. There's cars whizzing by, there's people doing business, there's a Burger King or something across the street. And I saw some guy, running a little newsstand, and I thought, how often does he look up and say, good Lord, that is the freaking Colosseum, from 17, 18, 1900 years ago. Everything just tends to blend into the background. So I think that's everyone's homework assignment today. Is like, what is it that you have really taken for granted, whether it's a thing, a location, or a person? And, what can you do about it today?
Yeah, and what don't you see anymore?
Yeah.
because you've so taken her ground. All right, so I've got another one, and I'm going to lead it with a little story because it deals with criticism. I am sure, Dom, you have had your share. Um, and I'll never forget the time I was on the road. For all of you, I spent literally 30 years on the road. I went to work on United Airlines with boxes of books, speaking in every state of this country in 20 countries. And that I had just come home from a 2-week trip. It was like the angels had descended. Everything was just fabulous. The audiences were wonderful. You know what that's like, Dom, when everything just like click, 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 click.
Yeah.
And a call came in, and it was someone that I had been referred to speak. And when I tell the story, I never tell the name of the company, but the person who was the decision maker, and I always felt I would be perfect. She started the call with, "I don't like you." Okay, I don't, I don't. Okay, okay. So I don't like the way you look. I don't like the way you talk. I don't think you can tell a story. I think you have no sense of humor. I don't think you're a fit for our group. Well,
Wow.
I had come in. Okay, so I had come in feeling the angels had been around me. By the time she was done, you needed a triple spatula to pick me off the floor. I mean,
Yeah.
she just brought me down so much. My marketing person was in the office, and she's kind of watching me, and I and coming from my background, my marketing sales background, and I'm saying, well, it doesn't sound like we'll get to work together. And she said, "That's right," and she hung up. So Cheryl said, "Who was that?" So I told her who it was, and she went over it, and I'm going to tell all of you to have these kind of little files. She opened up a file, then she pulled out some letters, and she said, "Mom, here's a letter from Barbara Bush. Here's a letter from Tom Peters. Here's a letter from Sandra Day O'Connor. Here's a letter from Rosalind Connor. Mom, this woman doesn't count."
Yeah.
And we forget about the accolades when someone is doing the grind down on you. And
Yeah.
so, I told friends about it that I had over for dinner, and one of my friends gets up from the table, Dom. She goes into my kitchen. She's opening up the covers, and she comes out with a garbage bag. She said, "Where are they?" So the company, which I will never tell you are, makes plastic parts with bowls and lids, and you put them together and they burp. I told her where they were. She pulled them out, and we had an exorcism that night. It's, and they
Yeah.
all left the building. I never saw them again. Years ago, I was talking in Boca Raton, and I started using that story when I was making a point about don't let negativity yank you down.
Yeah.
And that a woman came up to me and she said, "You were talking about Francine Watkins, weren't you?" She said,
Boom.
"I quit that company because of her." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about critics. Sometimes we have our inner critics, but what about when it's coming in from the outside?
There is, I hope I'm getting this quote right because I haven't seen it in a while. And I hope I'm attributing to the right, I believe I am. I think it's Paul
Okay.
Simon of Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, I love Simon and Garfunkel.
And Paul Simon said something about how he never ever reads reviews.
He
And somebody
he
asked
did
him
say that.
why. And he says, because reviews are about the person writing it, not about you.
Oh, oh, love that.
Isn't that great? And like I said, I hope I got all of that right, but because I haven't seen it in a while.
Oh
But I
no,
was like,
I've
that's
seen it. Yeah.
exactly right. If you think about, like, if you get a negative review on Amazon or if you get whatever, that's generally more about that person than it ever would be about you.
Yes.
And I happen to be I work in two different careers that are rife with criticism because
Oh
you
yeah.
have not seen criticism until you have done a morning radio show. I mean, if you do not have the thickest skin on the planet, don't even dream of getting into radio because every nasty, toxic, angry person in the world will eventually gravitate to reaching out to a morning radio show host because It's just easy for them to do, and they can get it off their chest. So
Yeah.
I tend to believe that, yeah, a lot of times it's just person that's just the way they're wired. Um, and then when it comes to writing, oh, for God's sakes, the whole idea of reviews, I was mentioning earlier that there's 1 star and 5 star people, they don't know anything in between. Like they can find one tiny little thing wrong with something
Oh,
you've
yeah.
written, and then you're a 1 star review. And it's like, you're got to be kidding me. My best advice for people who are just getting started in writing and they're worried about the reviews, here's what I'll tell you. Go on to Amazon and search for Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. Can't we all agree that is an American classic?
Classic.
Right?
Mhm.
It's maybe one of the best English language books ever written. Then take a look at the number of 1 star reviews.
A lot.
Lots of them. And that's all you need to know. You're like, wait a minute. To Kill a Mockingbird has hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have said 1 star, horrible book, hated it. That should be the most freeing thing in your career, to know that there's no way you're going to please everybody. If some of the greatest books ever written can't please everybody, why would you worry about it? So what I try to tell people is those letters that, your daughter pulled out for you, those are the people you're writing for. You're the people who like what you do. You're just going to work for them. People who get angry or upset, or if they trash your work, you just got to look the other way.
They're out there.
They're out there. They'll always be there. If Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird got 1 star, that takes all the pressure off of you. This takes all the pressure off. There will be people who love what you do. You just got to find them, and then just cater to them, and don't worry about the, bitchy pants
Oh,
people, don't worry
oh,
about them.
that's right. And let me throw, we haven't even said this word, but all you need is a few hundred super fans.
Yeah.
Dear viewer, dear listener, that's all you need is a few hundred super fans that love your words, that love your stories, that love your concepts, that loves your advice, whatever you're doing, um, that they become actually your marketing piece in a lot of
Right.
ways.
Yeah.
And your supporters. And that's who you're writing for. That's why I think, Dom, one of the things I try to drill in, and I had a very painful conversation with a new client I'm working with to get his book out. I said, I don't think you understand who your who is.
Right.
You have missed your mark, and he's writing a how-to book. The how-to readers for all of you, and if you haven't done your homework, you need to do this, everyone. But on the low side, 70% of the readers are female. On the high side, it's 87%. If you're not using stories and samples and examples jargon that will tie into your female audience, you have missed the boat. I'm just going
Yeah.
to say that.
Yeah. This criticism is such a weird, funny thing. I love your story about your exorcism with the Tupperware.
The Tupperware. Oh, yes,
I gotta
it
tell you
was.
I'll tell you my exorcism story. I was a
Okay.
young program director at a radio station. I was only in probably 24. And when you're that age, you take things usually way too seriously. And this is when I learned my lesson finally about, complaints or criticism. And the turning point for me was when I got a handwritten letter sent to the radio station. It was like 2 pages front and back that this gentleman had written, just crucifying my radio station. Everything he could imagine that was wrong. He hated this, he hated that. This is terrible. You're stupid. You're blah, 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 just over and over. And that kind of pushed me over the edge, because what I did, and Judith, you might appreciate this, is I didn't get angry. I didn't write back and say, you don't know what you're doing. What I did is and this is a true story. I took a red pen and I graded his paper. I circled every misspelled word and put like -5, and I drew little arrows. I graded it like a school paper. And then at the top, I put the score. I think it got like a 55. And so I just put F and circled it. I put it back in an envelope and I mailed it back to him.
I
And I was
love
like,
that.
that is how I finally was like, I'm just going to use some humor. I am never going to convince this person. You just, first of all, that's another lesson. Don't engage for the most part and don't try to convince people. Just don't waste your breath. I'm like, I'm not going to convince this guy. So I just had fun and I just graded his paper and returned it. And of course, I never heard from him again. But
No, you
that
won't.
kind of, I was happy the whole rest of that week.
Major week. All right.
Oh, it made
Listen,
my entire week. And here it is.
so
That was 40 years ago, and I'm still talking
still
about it.
talking about it. All right, Dom, we have 1 minute to go. So I just want to say to everyone, Dom is going to be our fabulous MC again at the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame fourth induction in September 6th. If you can get yourself to Denver, you want to go and come and attend. We happen to be inducting the top 2 fantasy writers in America. Rebecca Yarros, every print of her book is at minimum of 1 million copies. And Jim Butcher, who happens to be the author of the Dresden series on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um, Wonderful. So it's going to be a great time. So we get to play with Dom. Dom, before we go, one thing. Dom's book, Let It Be Good. Absolutely worth your time. It's actually as soon as Dom sent it to me and I picked it up and all of a sudden I was 3 chapters in. That's the kind of book you want to write.
Oh, that's
That's the
sweet
kind
of
of
you to
book you
say.
want to write.
Thank you for that.
Right. So with that, Dom, you have a 12-word proverb um, that would be perfect to do kind of a wrap up
Yeah.
for what we've been for our play day.
Mhm. That proverb is no matter how far you have traveled down the wrong path, turn
Oh,
back.
oh my God. And where does that come from?
It came from a thought a day calendar that my cleaning lady gave me, but allegedly it is a Turkish proverb. But I just think it applies to so much in life. No matter how far you've gone down the wrong path, turn back.
I love it.
Yeah.
That has made my week.
Good. You made mine. Thank you for letting me be a guest on your wonderful podcast.
Thank you for coming back. You got to come back again.
Okay.
We keep playing. We should go through all. You got to come back and tell your Buster story. Your okay. You got to come
Okay.
back and share that how that came about because
Okay.
I almost peed laughing when we did that one. All right. So with that said, everyone, have a great week. Happy writing. Let's get publishing. Come to the Authors Hall of Fame, and we'll see you next week.